Good morning. I'm Father John Hynes of St. Catherine of Siena here in the Diocese of Wilmington, Delaware. And I'm very glad to be with you on this first Sunday of Advent. Advent's message today is that the world that we are comfortable in must come to an end. We hear Jesus say that the powers of heaven will be shaken, and on earth people will be terrified by the roaring of the waves. And this is true. Everyone's world must come to an end. Sister Margaret Conroy and many sisters of St. Joseph went down to the Rio Grande Valley, to the border at the city of Laredo a few months ago to help with the refugee people who were coming across the border. And she met a woman and daughter who had fled their town in Central America because her husband and her 13-year-old son had been killed by a gang. Her world had ended. She was alive, but she had to find a new world. And whether it's the loss of a job, a divorce, the birth of a child with extreme special needs, or any of the other events that shake our world, the worlds we live in must come to an end. Not because they aren't good or comfortable, although sometimes they're not so good, but because they're not enough. God has got something prepared for us which is far, far better. And the final end of our world is our death. But the images that Advent gives us in today's scriptures are not the images of death, but they're the images of new life. The prophet in the first reading talks about the stump of Jesse. The tree of Jesse has been cut down. The kingship of Israel, of Judah, has been wiped out, never to come back. And yet from that stump will grow a little shoot, which will become a great tree, a Jesse tree, if you will. And that tree is Jesus and the church. In last Sunday's gospel, he spoke of, when you see the fig tree starting to bud, you know that summer is near, and fruit and fulfillment. So let's try to live Advent as a time when we're willing to see the world that we're used to come to an end because something better must come in its place. Our worlds are not meant to come to an end because they're not good or because they're not fulfilling. God gives us the world we live in as a gift. It's simply important for us to know that this gift is the beginning and not the end. And so it must come to an end to give rise to something better. Further along in Advent, the image that'll be before us from the church will be a babe in the womb, an unborn child. I don't know how an unborn child in the womb feels. I can't remember, and they don't talk about it. But I would think that in one sense, life in the womb where my every need is met, where everything is very comfortable, where I am enclosed in a protective way in the womb of my mother. If the child were given a choice, if it could be given a choice to come out or stay in, would it perhaps choose to stay in the world that it's used to, that's so good? And yet come out it must. That's the way of God with us. We ourselves in our homes during Advent need to work with this promise of God. Light an Advent wreath and pray. Put an empty manger on your table and fill it each day one by one with straws. Let the straws represent actions that different members of the family do in patience and in good-heartedness to bring about the coming of Christ. And keep in mind the words of St. Paul for the spirit of Advent. May you abound and grow more and more, brothers and sisters, in love. May God fill you and complete you with his love, that you may be ready for Christ Jesus when he comes. Good to be with you. I look forward to spending these days of Advent with you in spirit.